You shouldn't know every single one of your clients' names. That's kind of a controversial idea. If you know every person's name, you don't have enough clients. I'm pretty sure a couple of those people never got onboarded. You know what I mean? Like, there's no law that says how fast or how slow you can move.
So John, you scaled your agency to 7 figures a year in 10 months, while most agency owners struggle to, get close. How did you do that?
It's a hard question to answer, and this could be a extremely long video. I think the first and foremost thing is I realized that client acquisition is the most important thing. And this is something that I say a lot, but that I can't say enough. Because everybody's heard this. Like, the person watching this just heard me say that, and they thought, I've heard that before. Like, why is this any different? But they still, in their agency, in their day-to-day life, probably don't take that seriously. So it's one thing to say that. It's one thing to say, like, getting clients is the most important thing, because, I mean, technically in any business, getting clients is the most important thing. But it's another thing to actually live that out in actuality. It's another thing to wake up every single day and ask yourself, like, how am I going to get appointments on the calendar, and how am I going to close those appointments? Because if you're asking yourself questions like, what do I need to do for fulfillment? And how do I hire this person? Or how do I do this thing or that thing or the other thing? And it's not actually related to the acquisition of clients, then you're actually not taking this principle seriously. You're actually not putting this into play. You're actually not living this out in the way that I did. Because I can tell you, every single day that I woke up when I was first starting my agency, my main thought process was, how do I get clients? Because I realized basically every problem that I have is going to be solved through client acquisition. Like, I realized very quickly, if I can have 4 to 5 sales calls per day, every single day, I'll get everything that I want. Like, every goal that I have throughout my agency, I will achieve if I can have 4 to 5 sales calls per day.
And so what should the day-to-day look like for an agency owner who wants to embody this and wants to start making client acquisition the number one priority in their business?
Stop asking or, start asking and. So when I do one-on-one calls with people, they say, should I do cold outreach or should I run ads? And it's not an or question, it's a and question. So you should be doing outreach on every platform that you possibly can, and ideally getting a VA to automate that for you and do it for you. And I was talking to some one-on-one partners today, and I was reaming some of my one-on-one partners. You were actually in the other room, and you kind of heard me getting angry at them. And I don't curse often, but I was like cursing at these one-on-one partners. And I was saying, you have a VA doing your outreach, but your VA is not doing the outreach just to take this off your plate just because it's a nice thing to have. Your VA is doing this because they can do it all day and they can put appointments on the calendar. And so if they're not doing that, that needs to be something that you're looking at, monitoring, and actually tracking and keeping track of, and like every single day, if your VA is doing it, looking it over, making sure it's looking good. Because it's not just a nice to have. Like, you have to have appointments on the calendar. It's not just a thing where it's like, oh, that would be cool if I had some appointments on the calendar. It's like, no, this is literally, it would be like saying, it would be nice to have some oxygen and some water today. No, you have to have that in order to live. And so it's doing every single thing you can do to get clients, outbound, paid ads, content, like literally anything you need to do to get clients, that's what you need to be doing.
But doesn't, for mostly a bunch of people in this space, they'll just say like one channel, one ad a hour until $1 million a year. Isn't that kind of the route?
Well, you have to figure out what the one channel is. And so that is probably true. There is probably some truth to that. As an example for us, we did see some channels would outperform other channels. I see this with my one-on-one partners all the time. Like, somebody will do really good on LinkedIn. Somebody will do really good on cold email. Somebody will do great with paid ads. And it's not like a one size fits all where it's like every niche just should generally use this channel. I think that's true, but you still have to figure that out. Because a lot of people, they just start with one channel and then they just only run one channel. Like cold calling as an example. I had a guy that I was working with, Kieran, and he was just doing all cold calling. And he never really even tried any other channels. And I was like, why don't you do some other channels or test out some other channels? And he had never really even thought about it before. So obviously we developed him a strategy to start doing other channels, and he started diversifying and realized, hey, there's other channels that work better than the cold calling. And so you have to actually test multiple different channels to be able to figure out which one works best.
And so how would you go about testing? Like, is there a specific route to do it?
Well, most people don't even look at data. Most people don't do any kind of tracking whatsoever. And so a big reason that we were able to scale as fast as we were is because at some point in business, it just becomes a math problem. It just becomes algebra. I'm doing multiple different platforms, I'm running ads or whatever the case may be, and just looking at the data from every single thing that you're doing is so important. Like if you're doing Facebook outreach, how many messages did you send? How many follow-ups did you do? How many messages did your VA send? How many follow-ups did your VA do? How many calls did you book? And then you can actually get the numbers from there and see, okay, we need to send 100 messages in order to book 3 calls. This is what I did in the beginning. And this is not what you're gonna do forever, but this is what we did in the beginning. Like, hey, I need to send 100 messages, I'll book 3 calls. That means I need to figure out how to send 300 messages. I need to get access to more accounts. I need to get friends and family members' accounts. I need to get more VAs. And then it's a game of scaling. But most people have like no tracking in place whatsoever because they're just lazy or they're just not even thinking to do it. Same with ads. You figure out what is your cost to acquire a customer. You figure out it's $1,000. Well, you want to get 20 customers in a month. You got to spend $20,000. Basically how math works. And it works the exact same way as an agency owner, but most people haven't even started to figure these things out. And this is not just advice targeted to beginners. Like there's people doing 50K a month that have zero idea of what their costs are, or they have zero idea like what they need to do on a day-to-day basis or what their inputs need to look like. So tracking your numbers and looking at the data is extremely important. And that's just kind of a slight example of how you can do it. I mean, there's 4 kind of things that you need to track: fulfillment, finance, marketing, and sales. You should have 3 to 5 numbers for each of those things that you're tracking and looking at on a day-to-day basis.
So for sales, what should those numbers be?
Yeah, it should be how many calls are on your calendar, how many calls actually show up, and how many calls close. Very simple. But like most people don't even know that, you know? And you know how I know? Because most people just say like some super round number. You know, we say 40% of my marketing, but my close rate was probably closer to like 38-ish. Or maybe some months it was 38, other months it was 42. But again, it's like, the way that I would think about it is, if you don't know like to the decimal what your close rate is, well then you don't really know how many inputs you need to put through or like what specifically you need to do. And I think it's why like it's so scary for some people, because like I was talking to somebody the other day, I don't actually remember who it was, and they were like, how do you get over the fear of running paid ads? Because like money comes out of your bank account every day. It's kind of a scary thing. And I basically said, I'm in the mindset where I know the data so much that I actually feel comfortable running paid ads. And if I'm running an offer, then I'm actually uncomfortable if I'm not running paid ads. Because I know that like, okay, we're putting inputs in, I know how to do this. Like I know how to put dollars into paid ads and make more dollars back. That makes me comfortable because I know it works and I've seen it work time and time and time again in my career. I mean, newsflash, it's a crazy idea, but the time in my career where I made the most money, I also spent the most on paid ads. And so that's why it doesn't scare me to run paid ads. It actually scares me to not run paid ads, if that makes sense, which is a big reframe for people. But it's like, if you're going to succeed as an agency owner at some point, you're gonna have to get consistent client acquisition happening, ideally through multiple channels, but paid ads can be a big part of that. And I think that it should actually help you sleep better at night knowing, hey, every single day people are seeing my agency.
And so for people who are maybe more in the beginning phases or they have this fear of spending money on ads, for the outcome, is there like an appropriate level of output that they should be, you know, sending 100 messages, 1,000 messages? Like what's the output they should be looking to do?
Yeah, I mean, that's not a big deal. You know, I would never advise someone, just to be clear, hey, go spend all your money on paid ads, you know, or go get a credit card and put the money on paid ads. I don't recommend doing that. I've known people that have done that, and it never works out too well for people for a couple of reasons. Number one, though, is because their offer isn't validated. And so when you're running paid ads to a new offer that nobody's bought yet, even if the offer is good, you still are making an educated guess. The educated guess might be right. You might have some data to know, okay, this is gonna be a good decision. Like if I start a new agency and I start running paid ads, and you know, I would do that with a brand new agency at this point in my career. I wouldn't recommend many people to do that, but I would do it. And I would put together the offer that I know would be good. But until I've run the paid ads and validated the offer, it still is a guess. Now the guess could be right 90% of the time. I could have a higher probability of getting that guess right than somebody who's brand new, of course, because I have more data and I've done it more times, but it still is at some level a guess. And so what I would say is, it's okay if you don't have money to spend on paid ads. Just understand that you're gonna move slower, right? Like the reason we spend money in business is ultimately just to move faster. That's the only reason that you spend money, is to move faster. When you hire someone, by you not doing that task anymore, you get to move faster and you get the workload off of you and onto somebody else. It's essentially what you're paying money to get someone to do, right? That's what hiring is, allowing you to move faster. So if they can't do it, to answer your question, this is a long answer to a short question. If they can't spend money on paid ads, basically all they need to be thinking about all day is doing outreach, cold email, Facebook outreach, LinkedIn outreach, Instagram outreach. And the good news is if you can just validate the scripts and get the scripts working and producing calls, very quickly you'll be able to get a VA to actually do that for you for $500, $600, $800 a month, and you will never have to touch it again. So a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to do outreach. It's one of those things where just rip the Band-Aid off, do a bunch of it, get a process down, and then just hand it over to the VA.
Is there like an amount that the outreach should be doing?
Yeah, well, with a new LinkedIn or a new Facebook or a new Instagram, you're going to get limited on how many you can do. So you can't, just to be clear, go on and blast 200 LinkedIn connection requests in a day. You know, I would say you want to aim for 20 to 30 a day and space it out all throughout the day if we're talking like specifically. But I would try to get more accounts. Like the way to scale outbound on social media, you know, is the same way with cold email where you need more inboxes and you need more domains. Social media works the exact same way. Like people are like, oh, well, I've hit my sending limit. I guess that means I'm done for the day. It's not that difficult, dude. Try to go get another account. Girlfriend, cousin, brother, mom, you know, just change their account, rebrand it a little bit if you can, and then use their account.
Did you ever have any success when doing outreach, for example, from like a company account on Instagram, Facebook?
Not really, and I never really tried because my idea was if a person's reaching out to you, there's like a 50% chance they're selling you something. Like when somebody reaches out to you randomly, you're like, okay, this guy's trying to sell me something, or gal. When a company reaches out to you, it's 100% that they're trying to sell you something. So I never really did outreach from, you know, our agency account. I would have normally kept it on a personal account just because humans want to work with and talk with humans.
If someone doesn't know where to start and they're thinking about what platform they should do, is there like a recommendation you would make, or just, you know, guess and try as many as they can?
I'm gonna do Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. It also is dependent on niche. So there's not like a magic platform. Like some platforms are gonna work better for certain niches. And so you should be asking yourself, where does your niche actually hang out? If you have more of a sophisticated B2B type niche, well then likely they're gonna be on LinkedIn. If you work with realtors, let's say as an example, or mortgage loan officers, they're kind of on every platform, kind of identifying themselves very easily. So something kind of interesting about outreach is, do you work with a niche that actually benefits from easily being found on social media? A lot of people don't think about this, but like a realtor as an example, they need to be easy to find in order to make money. If you are a dentist, as an example, I'm not saying dentists are bad. You know, I've had people that I've worked one-on-one with who have had tons of success working with dentists. I have a guy that's doing like 40K a month right now working with dentists. And so I'm not saying it's a bad niche, but I'm saying like a dentist doesn't actually get any value from putting things on their Facebook page in the same way that a realtor would. And so how easy are they to find? Then from there, you'll be able to figure out what platforms are maybe gonna work best, and that's how I would do it.
And is there any other criteria you choose to, or on which you choose the niche to go into?
Yeah, I mean, they need to have a at least $2,500 ticket, if not 5,000, ideally. I'll say 2,500 sometimes, and I'll say 5,000 other times. It just depends how I'm feeling. I would probably try to get them closer to 5,000. Decent sized TAM. You know, I did a call with someone today who had like a niche with like 7,000 people, and it's just too small. And I think also too that they work off a sales call model. I've done other videos specifically where I talk about niche selection, but that's the kind of cliff notes.
What do you think is the right time to prioritize something else besides the outreach though? If you're doing it, it's probably the highest leverage activity you're doing. You're putting appointments on the calendar. When do you get the VA or someone else to do that?
Well, I would try to get off doing that extremely quickly because it is pretty low leverage and it's pretty easy to outsource. There's always going to be some things in business that are easy to outsource, and there's going to be things that are hard to outsource. I think getting somebody to get on a sales call and be good at that is probably the hardest hire to make. If it wasn't hard, then literally just everybody would have sales reps from the moment they started business, because nobody really loves like taking sales calls. Some people do, but most people, you know, for the most part, don't love jumping on sales calls. So if it was easy to get sales reps, then everybody would do it. That's a harder thing to outsource. Whereas getting a VA to copy and paste messages might be a little easier. The hard part is validating the messages, right? It's like, same with Facebook ads. You know, I was talking about Facebook ads earlier. It's the same exact idea. People always have a misconception about what they perceive is going to be hard and what they perceive is going to be easy. You know, people will tell me, yeah, well, it's going to be easy to like acquire clients. The hard part's going to be to, you know, get results for clients. And I'm like, no, that's actually the opposite is true. The hard part is acquiring the clients, because once you've acquired the clients, you have the money to actually bring on team to do the fulfillment. Pretty simple, right? And so it's funny, when I'll see people message me and say, well, scaling is going to be easy. I just got to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, well, what you just said makes no sense, because the hard part is doing all that stuff to get you to the point of scaling. You know, it's like saying getting a six-pack is easy. All I need to do is like eat super healthy and just work out every day. It's like, yeah, that's the hard part, dude. You know, and so that's the way that I would kind of think about it.
So is there like a pace on which people should be looking to? For example, you mentioned you would like 4 to 5 appointments per day on your calendar. Is there like a average should be multiple or a certain amount of booked calls for the day, certain amount of clients closed per week or closed per month, so that they're on pace and they're not scaling either too slowly or too quickly?
Adam, my business partner at my realtor agency, he texted me the other day and paid me a tremendous compliment. And he said, "You move faster than anyone that I've ever met or worked with." And I genuinely think that any kind of success that I've had has been fully attributed to that. The Mark Zuckerberg quote of like move fast and break things. People have zero concept of what it actually means to move fast. And I think this is one of the biggest things that I push my guys on at AC is just to move quicker. Like there's no law that says how fast or how slow you can move. There's nothing stopping you from getting outreach in place, stop doing it and hand it to a VA in a week. Like that's the way that I've always tried to move. If you're watching this video right now and you're thinking about running paid ads, there's nothing stopping you from in the next week or even in less than a week, filming the ads, building your funnel, publishing the ads and starting to get clients from them. And so I would just try to move at the fastest pace that I possibly can. We moved so fast that we like actually broke stuff. Like in June of 2021, we enrolled 47 clients in a month. Disclaimer, I'm pretty sure a couple of those people never got onboarded. You know what I mean? Now, as crazy as that is the downside to moving fast. And some people are gonna hear that and be like, really? Some people never got onboarded. You shouldn't know every single one of your clients' names. That's kind of a controversial idea. If you know every person's name, you don't have enough clients. And that's a symptom of not moving fast enough.
So you scale extremely quickly. And so you scaled to 7 figures in 10 months, which is, an exception. What do you see is like the typical pace, for example, with some of your partners that they see that, they're able to scale 3 months, 6 months? Like what's the usual pace there that you see is reasonable?
Yeah, well, I was kind of being fun and playful, but if you do scale too quickly, things will break and it'll get out of hand. And so you have to be careful of kind of riding the line. It's like alcohol. You can have a few drinks. I don't drink at all, but you can have a few drinks, but there's a line, right? Where it's like if you have too much, might not be good. Now get yourself in some muddy water. But if you have too little, then you might not have too fun of a night, right? I don't drink, but I'm just saying. And so the way that I kind of think about this is there's a different pace that makes sense for everyone. It really depends on your goals and what you're trying to build. I actually think the best way of going about it is just making sure that your clients are getting good results, but also having enough of a cohort to even be able to know. Because if you have like 2 clients and they both get exceptional results, you haven't even really figured out if they're the exceptions or if they're the rule. And so you have to have enough clients to actually know like, hey, our service gets results, these case studies are legit, these are valid. And you don't even know as well if you get bad results for people, like if that's the exception or the rule. So the same kind of applies. And so I would say the way that I would want to see somebody do it is they scale like the perfect speed of they're aggressive, they're acquiring clients, they're bringing in maybe 1 to 2 clients a week while also maintaining a good client experience, because at some level you are going to make more money. I don't even like saying this because some person is going to hear this and think that I'm talking to them and I'm not, but there is some level at which you will make more money if you keep your clients longer and actually acquire less people. Like there is a kind of a line that you cross that actually works for people. But for most people, they're best off just really focusing on client acquisition. It just depends what kind of clients you're working with. It depends on a wide array of factors, but I really want to see people that I work with scale client acquisition and be aggressive, but also make sure that the clients are getting a good experience, that they're happy, that they're staying, that they're paying, that they're leaving testimonials and case studies, and then, kind of doing that slowly at the speed at which they can handle. Because a lot of times, your business can be severely affected if you grow too fast. But most people, again, this is one of those things that's so niche to talk about because most people have the opposite problem. Most people that are agency owners are much more in the bucket of dying from starvation than they are dying from indigestion. So it's like, that's a rare breed of people that are struggling with that problem.
And so if you were to give like a roadmap, for example, from 0 to let's call it 50K, on which people start with some sort of outbound, at a certain point they outsource the the outbound. At a certain point, they start with ads. At a certain point, they maybe put a closer on instead of them. Could you give like a roadmap for someone to kind of follow, to know like what are the marks on which they should, take the next step?
I would say after you close 5 clients, you know your offer is validated. It depends on the time frame. So if that's 5 clients in 2 years and like 100 sales calls, no. So that's contextual as well. But I would say if you can get 5 clients in, let's say, a month or 2 months from outbound, you probably have an offer that's good enough to take to paid. And so I would say, you get 5 clients or so, and then I would keep it as a rule of thumb to reinvest 20%. This is aggressive, but 20% of your revenue into ad spend. So that means if you're making $5,000 a month, spend $1,000 on ads. And the thing is, if you're making $5K a month with your agency, you're not making any money. So what is really the difference between taking $1,000 or $2,000 and investing back in ads? Because you're not gonna really achieve any of your life goals on $2,000 a month in profit. You know what I'm saying? Depends on where you live, but like for most people, you're not starting an agency to make $2,000 a month. And so I would say, like, for me personally, I would actually realize that maybe I can make some lifestyle sacrifices in order to put more money back into the business to be able to scale up and actually get to a good place income-wise, because the growth is gonna come from putting time, resources, and team into getting more clients. And so I would say, like, aim to spend 20% of your revenue on ads. Maybe if you're below 10K a month, it should be like 50% of your revenue. Because again, if you're profiting $2,000 a month, what are you gonna do with that? And then you might lose 1 client and you might lose like all of your profits, because that's kind of how the agency model works. So I would say outbound, 5 clients. And you could probably pass off the outbound to a VA before you get 5 clients. Take that money, reinvest a decent chunk of that back into ad spend, work on getting really good at sales, use that cash flow to get an amazing operator, somebody that can really do all the fulfillment, that you can really almost partner with in a way, who will kind of have your back up to that 50K a month mark. And the thing with operators too, as a rule of thumb, you should never be doing the delivery 90% of cases. Now there's some people that are like experts. For that person, it probably actually, you do make the most money by doing the delivery. And it's funny because with my offer, I do the delivery. So I'm kind of a hypocrite when I give this advice and I'm like, don't do the delivery. Well, I do the delivery, but I think in my context, it makes sense because there is a large upside to me doing the delivery. Because I work one-on-one with the partners at AC, there's more room to grow and to build with them. And there's gonna be a scaling through, if you will, lifetime value in actually doing a really good job for the partners. And so that's why I actually do so much fulfillment for my own offer, which is kind of funny because I tell everybody don't do fulfillment. But coming back to that, the quality of operator you're gonna be able to get is going to be precisely tied to how good at client acquisition that you are as the agency owner. And so your operator is gonna level up and level up and level up and level up. Like you're always gonna kind of qualify for more as you get better and better and better. So you wanna find one, and there's 2 things that are gonna happen with the operator that you find in the beginning. Like let's say you have 5 clients. The operator that you find in the beginning is either just gonna not be able to handle that level of growth, like as you scale, and you're just gonna have to let go of them and get another one. The second thing that's gonna happen is they're gonna rise to the top and be somebody that you can build with that's just gonna be an absolute stud, and they're gonna be able to take you to 100K a month plus because they're handling all the fulfillment. So it's get outbound going, validate the offer, reinvest into paid ads, get an operator that's doing all your fulfillment, either let that operator rise to the top or let them fall out and go get somebody else. And then all you need to focus on is pushing more clients through and understand that your success is directly tied to how fast you can do that.
If someone hears this and they maybe want your help to do that for them, what's the next step for them?
All they need to do is go to agencyclients.com. I work one-on-one with agencies to install all of the systems that I use to close 771 clients and collect over $5 million in cash at my agency. At a high level, I just install all of those systems directly into my partners' agencies for positioning and how to actually look like the market leader so your prospects trust you and actually want to work with you, to your offer and building out an offer that clients really want to say yes to outbound and inbound. So I just work one-on-one with my partners on all the strategies that I use to fill my calendar and book over 500 sales calls a month for me and my team. We work on sales processes as well, so my partners can get on calls with their prospective clients and close deals at the highest rates. And then of course we work on fulfillment. So all the stuff that I'm talking about finding an operator and not doing fulfillment and not being caught up in the day-to-day of that, not being in that trap. I work one-on-one with people to install all of those systems into their agencies so they can ultimately scale to 30, 50, 100K a month plus, like I was able to do. So agencyclients.com.